Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R tutorial video. In this video, we're going to talk about how we can start to incorporate multiple data sets or multiple pieces of information on a single graph or a single plot. Now this is going to be different from our discussion on how we could use color, shape, and size to differentiate data points. We're actually going to be including multiple plots or multiple graphs on a single plot. So what I would like to do here, because I think it's a little bit easier to go through ggplot first, just because ggplot is a little bit easier to deal with. What we're going to do is we're going to go through two examples or make two different graphs to show two different sort of ways that this can work. And to do this, we need to have multiple data sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to break up the iris data set by species. So I'm going to have I underscore setosa is going to be iris indexed at iris $sign species is equal to setosa. We want all of the columns. So now we have the setosa, and then we'll do the versicolor. Or sorry, we'll do virginica. I'm going to just use virginica so I don't mess up the spelling there. Iris indexed at iris $sign species equals virginica. Oop, see, this is why you always have to remember that comma. Okay, so we can look over here and we can see that we have iris underscore vir, which has 50 observations, and iris underscore setosa, which has 50 observations. So we now have two different data sets. So let's talk about the first data set or the first graph that I want to make. And we're going to make a graphic that has two histograms, one for setosa and one for virginica, on the same plot. And again, I think it's easiest to go about this in ggplot first. So we're actually going to start with ggplot. So as always, our ggplot starts with a call to ggplot. And in this case, I'm actually going to leave this call empty because I want to be able to have the layers bring in their own data sets. And I guess I should sort of, before we get into this, explain sort of conceptually how this is going to work. So the way this is going to work is, up to this point, we've really only had one geometry call, either geometry underscore histogram or geometry underscore point. We only had one geometry call in our ggplot. If we want to add additional layers, additional graphs, we simply have additional calls, additional geometry calls in our ggplot. So let's just go ahead and quickly get two graphs on the same graphic, and then we'll explain how we can make it look a little bit nicer, how we can fix up some legend issues that are going to happen. But for now, let's just go ahead and throw on the two different histograms. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the histogram, and we're doing that with the geom underscore histogram function. And that takes in at a minimum the x value that we want, which is the data value which we want. Because we didn't pass in the data to ggplot, we have to pass in the data here. This is going to be data equals, and then we're going to do I underscore setosa. And then it requires a mapping function with a mapping parameter with the aesthetic function, which says what variables are we going to use to drive this geometry. And we're going to have the x variable be equal to the sepal dot length. Right? And if you remember the iris data set here, this is the sepal length variable. So if we were to run this really quickly, and then run it again down here, right, you'll see that we've got just a basic histogram, exactly like what we would expect. So let's go ahead and add in a second histogram by adding in another call to the geom underscore histogram. Let's actually close that so we don't have that cluttering up our screen. Another call to geom histogram. In this case, though, we're going to have data equal to I underscore ver, right? And then we have the same mapping. It's going to look very similar to what we just did because we're in effect duplicating this for a different data set. And this is going to also be x equal to sepal.length. So what I want to do really quick is I want to run this and just show you what it looks like. Right, so right now you just see what effectively looks like it might even be one histogram, but we know because we did the calls up here, this is really two separate histograms. So how can we go about making these differentiated? And what I'm going to do first is show you, we're going to do it the easy way, and then I'm going to show you a way that we can do it that would make the legend a little bit better. So right now what we can do is we can do something called fill, which what fill does is fill drives the fill, right, the interior color of the boxes. So we'll make setosa in this. We'll make setosa in this case. How about red? How do we make setosa red? And then we can make the virginica. We'll make that fill equals. We'll make that one blue. So if we run this, and then we run it down here, you'll see that now we have red and blue. And we're starting to see some differences here. There are some issues. We don't have a legend for one. And for two, because we have these sort of solid fills here, you can see that anywhere that the blue overlaps the red, all we see is blue. Now, I want to take a minute. We're going to fix that issue, but I want to take a minute and explain to you why it's set up that way. So the way that ggplot works here is that it reads things in order, starting with the ggplot call that you have to have, and then it reads things in order, and it plots them almost, you can think of as they're being plotted in almost in reverse order. So what happens is it hits this first geom call, so it puts this on the plot. Then it reads the second geom call, and it puts this on the plot, but this goes on top of this because this is already there. So you can think of it like making a sandwich, right? You put down your piece of bread, then you put down your meat or cheese or whatever you're putting on the sandwich. So the cheese would be on top of the meat or the bread. So we could obviously flip that if we wanted the red to be on top. But there's a better way to fix this, in my opinion, and that's just to use what's called alpha blending. And basically what this means is this means we can set a parameter called alpha. And the alpha parameter basically controls the transparency of the layer. So if we set alpha equal to 0.5, this layer will have a transparency of 50%. And we can do the same thing here. And if we run this, and then we make it appear down here, you'll see that what we've done is we have the transparency here and the transparency here, and then anywhere they overlap is a slightly different color. So you can sort of quickly visualize where they overlap now, and it's not dominated by one color. So hopefully that made sense. So now that we've done that, the next issue we have is, well, we don't have a legend. So I want to show you a different way that we can approach this. For the sake of time, I'm actually going to end this video here, and we'll pick this up in the next video, where we'll finish up the ggplot, and then we'll talk about how we can make the same graph in base R. But for now, hopefully all this made sense, understanding the way that order matters here. Having the red histogram called first means that the blue histogram will be on top, and we can use this alpha blending by making the layers semi-transparent to allow us to see where they overlap. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.